Please be warned that this video contains content that is highly graphic and of mature nature. Although I will not show any material that depicts the violence, it will be described in vivid detail. If you are not comfortable with cases of murder and strong violence, then please be advised now to switch the video off. On October 3rd, 2009, Christopher Gribble, aged 19, along with Stephen Spader, 17, William Marks, 18, and Quinn Glover, 17, planned to break into a random house and kill anyone who was inside. The plan was executed, and Kimberly Cates, aged 42, was brutally murdered with a machete. Her 11-year-old daughter Jamie was also attacked but survived by pretending to be dead. When I stumbled upon this case, I found it hard to believe. Two young and very dangerous sociopaths created a bubble of vile energy as they fueled each other's hateful thoughts and sadistic urges. The young girl surviving after watching her mother suffer a fate no one should ever have to endure, and the claims that both boys made after their arrests are truly astonishing. I don't think I've seen a level of evil this strong in quite some time.
No, I smile because it's funny that all the people in there have no idea who they're messing with.
Christopher Gribble was born in Utah to his parents Richard and Tamara Gribble. There is not much information available surrounding them, which is unfortunate, as during his trial both Christopher and his parents have wildly different stories about Chris's childhood. Without proper backstory into who they are, we can only speculate on who is telling the truth. Christopher would say that he believes Tamara is not actually his biological mother, despite both parents testifying that she is. He also claims that growing up she would physically and emotionally abuse him. Quote, "As a child and young teen, she would regularly pin me to the couch and told me not to make any noises while she popped acne and other sores on my back and legs. She would also pull hairs from my head. If I cried, I got smacked. She would call it an owie check." End quote. Tamara would deny these claims, saying other than spanking, there was only one incident that stood out which could be viewed as physical abuse. At age 4, Christopher would not want to come inside from playing and would relieve himself in his clothing. He would wet himself. This ruined several pairs of his shoes and frustrated Tamara. After this had happened for the 3rd time in a week, Chris told her to just buy him some new shoes. Tamara got angry at this and struck him with a wooden spoon. The force of the hit had broken the spoon, and Tamara felt that this experience was so horrifying that she would keep the pieces in her dresser to remind her never to do such a thing again. I find it difficult to decipher which party is telling the truth. It's completely reasonable to look at Chris and say that he is in the wrong. As we'll get into later, he is diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, having sociopathic tendencies. Although it is unknown exactly what causes antisocial personality disorder, medical studies indicate that there are several factors that can play a role in its development, genetics and environment being two of the main ones. A person is more likely to develop the disorder with a parent that has the same diagnosis, and it is also linked to negative childhood experiences like abuse. I am completely speculating here, and this is likely not one of the more popular of thoughts, but it is possible that Christopher is telling the truth, and that he did suffer from abuse as a child, with his parents now attempting to play the courtroom. During the trial, Chris is agitated by his mother's denial of the physical abuse and says, "In public, in here, she's sweet and charming. She's good at it. She can pull it off. I learned everything from her." Even though this may be a plausible explanation for why he developed into such a cold-blooded killer, it will never change the facts that the crime was committed by Christopher's hand and not his parents. In his mid-teens, Gribble began to develop more angry and irritable traits at home. When confronted by his parents for something that he may have done wrong, he would deny responsibility and accuse others of the wrongdoing. At the age of 14, Chris would express that this was when he first had thoughts of torturing and killing his mother. Years later, at the age of 16, Christopher was accused of sexually touching someone inappropriately at a store where he played Dungeons & Dragons. He was also accused of the same thing by a woman at his church. These allegations caused Gribble's parents to send him to a church-run counselor where he would divulge his desire to kill his parents. The counselor would go on to recommend that Gribble attain psychiatric treatment elsewhere. Gribble would then be seen by Dr. Grace Tallarico in the summer of 2007. He was age 17. He would undergo psychological testing that was performed by Dr. Alan Gladstone, and they would confirm that he had antisocial and sociopathic traits.
And let's talk about the clinical purposes for the test findings that you found and your clinical observations, what treatment would be recommended?
Long-term psychotherapy, especially when I found out that he had expressed homicidal ideation to Dr. Tallarico.
Tell me about that, how you found out that he had homicidal ideation.
Well, after I finished the evaluation, she invited me in she was very concerned. He expressed significant homicidal ideation, which I was not aware of, and that raised my concern about his dangerousness.
Just to explain for the jury what homicidal ideation is.
Well, he had thoughts of killing people, killing somebody.
It's difficult to uncover the reasons for why he didn't continue ongoing treatment, but the court documents state, quote, "Although Tallarico and Gladstone believed that Gribble would benefit from continued psychotherapy, neither were willing to provide that counseling. Tallarico told Gribble that the test results indicated sociopathic and antisocial personality traits. Gribble stopped going to counseling because he thought nothing could be done to treat him. Gribble refused to tell his parents what his results were, and they were unable to find out from the counseling center what the results had been or what treatment was recommended." End quote. Despite his parents being unable to learn the technical details of their son's visit, it appears one of the counselors contacted Gribble's mother with concerns.
At some point along the line in Chris's seeing Dr. Tallarico, she called us and said she wanted to meet briefly with both of us. We came in and she said, I need to talk with you about a number of issues that have come up during counseling. She said that there had been an issue of what she called inappropriate touching with somebody at church. And I said, what does that mean? She said somebody touched him inappropriately. I said, did someone molest my child? And she said, no, it was just inappropriate touching. Somebody put their arm around him. I said, okay. And she said, and also you need to know he's made death threats against both of you. And we said, is it serious? And she said, no, I think it's just, you know, how teenagers say, oh, I wish you were dead, and he's blowing off steam, and he's not a danger to anyone. It's not a problem.
So was that the first time you found out about
that was the first time I found out about it.
And at least what you were told, it didn't sound serious.
No, and she said, I have to tell you legally, I have requirements when there have been death threats made. I have to tell you and inform you. She said, but in my opinion, there's no issue there at all. He's not a danger to himself or to you.
In an article I found, Tallarico was questioned by the defense. Quote, on cross-examination, Hinckley challenged Tallarico on Gribble's thoughts of killing people. He said, and the psychiatrist agreed, that Gribble was able to control those bad thoughts. Upon further questioning, Tallarico said that Gribble expressed concerns 2 years ago that he would become a serial rapist. But he knew, Hinckley asked, and Tallarico confirmed in the affirmative, that it would be wrong. The psychiatrist also said during the questioning that Gribble showed no evidence of psychotic episodes and no impulse control disorders when she evaluated him. After Gribble ceased counseling, he was not seen again by a mental health professional until after his arrest in 2009. Over the next year, Gribble's homicidal thoughts would continue to intensify. Multiple people had stated that he would say things along the lines of, he would fantasize about taking his mother into the woods and cutting off little pieces of her bit by bit, listening to her scream, standing her on her head and pouring boiling water between her legs, and then bending her limbs out of joint. He would then sprinkle her with sugar so the crows would come and pluck at her. Quote, hey, if I'm going to kill her, why not make her pay? End quote. In Thanksgiving of 2008, his mother would find a pornographic tape in his room which was against their religious values. Gribble would deny that this tape belonged to him and claim that his mother had planted it in his room. The conflict would lead to Gribble leaving home and living with friends of the church for 7 months, the Burdge family. Ramona Burdge would testify that he was awkward in many social situations, lacking social skills, and was very intense.
It was definitely awkward. I mean, girls came and then they stopped coming. He seemed to be just so intense with them, and he was always falling in love with someone, and that made the girls really uncomfortable.
Have you ever used the word socially dysfunctional when describing Chris?
Yes,
And the example you just gave would be an example of that.
correct.
Did you ever use the phrase, the loneliest teenager I've ever heard of?
Yes.
And does that accurately describe Chris as you knew him when he lived with you?
Not while he lived with us. It was before he lived with us.
How old was he then when you at least, I guess at what age were you describing him as being the loneliest teenager you ever knew?
It was sometime in the year 2006, 2007. I'm not sure exactly what the time frame was. Another young man from our church was very, very ill. He was dying. And sometime, Stanford got sick in June, and he died in January. So sometime in that range, I saw Chris bear his testimony, which is a normal part of our church. And through that testimony, it became very clear to me that he wanted to be Stanford. He wanted the attention Stanford was getting.
Gribble would eventually return home, yet his relationship with his family would continue to be strained. This is when Christopher Gribble would rekindle a friendship with Stephen Spader, someone he had met in the Scouts years earlier. This meeting would see his life begin to take a turn towards criminal behaviour and the eventual murder. Before we take a look at the crime, it is important to gain a bit of an understanding of who Stephen Spader is. We've taken a good look at Christopher Gribble so far, due to the fact that I do find his case to be the most interesting out of the group. Spader plays a major role in this crime though, so it is important to take a glimpse at him.
Prosecutors took lengthy depositions from Christine and Steve Spader Sr. about their son and his childhood. The couple are in their 60s now and still live in the Brookline house where they raised Stephen, adopting him in Arizona when he was 5 days old. Spader tested positive for marijuana and cocaine at birth, according to court documents. The couple describe an idyllic childhood where birthdays were a big deal, family vacations were revered, and education was a priority for their only child. When Spader hit middle school, things started to get rocky, and the documents show his parents were determined to get him help through counselors, medication, even taking an equity loan on their home to send him to an exclusive behavior program in 2008. That same year, Spader was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Spader started smoking marijuana and using cocaine and pills in high school.
By all accounts, Stephen Spader had loving parents and a decent upbringing. I believe a quote from the prosecutor Jeffrey Strelzin summarizes the scenario well. When teenagers commit horrific crimes, we often look for easy explanations: an unhappy childhood, violent media, mental illness. Spader, Strelzin said, has no regard for anybody else's life or well-being. The only person he truly cares about is himself. Nobody wants to accept that often the simple answer is that somebody chose to do a terrible thing. They came from a good family and nobody saw it coming, because that thought is very uncomfortable. It appears that Spader was the ringleader of this little group of delinquents and had created a gang of sorts for them. I'll read an excerpt from Stephen Spader's court notes describing the time leading up to their crime. In the months leading up to the attack, defendants spent time with Gribble, Marks, Glover, and Autumn Savoy. They would assemble, play video games, and watch movies. During this time, defendant increasingly talked about breaking into homes, killing people. Defendant wanted to break into houses, steal stuff, kill people, stay the night, and make scenes for the press with their bodies. He talked about eating people and roasting people. In addition, he talked about torturing people, using chloroform to render people unconscious, being able to transport them somewhere else to kill them, or knock them out at the house so there was no noise. Defendant also formed the Disciples of Destruction and made himself president. It is clear from the mission statement he drafted that he intended the group to commit crimes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Glover, can you again go over some of the things that the defendant was talking about he wanted to do?
Breaking into houses, and he talked about eating people, roasting people, putting heads on stakes, making scenes for the press. It was...
Did he ever use the term sleeping over?
He did, sir.
And what did you take that to mean, sleeping over people's houses?
staying over the night with the bodies, making a scene, doing things like eating.
Did he talk about breaking into homes just to kill people?
No.
What else did he want to do when he broke into homes?
Take valuables, money, jewelry, anything to make money.
Who was the defendant talking to when he talked about breaking into homes, killing people, stealing stuff from the homes?
He was talking to myself, Billy Marks, Chris Gribble.
In the days leading up to what happened in Mont Vernon, did he continue to talk about killing people, murdering people, the defendant?
They became more prevalent, actually.
They became what?
More prevalent,
So they became more frequent?
yes.
What about the intensity of what he was saying?
Yes, they got more and more intense until it was actually talking about going into homes generally and doing all the things I said.
October 2nd, 2009. Spader and Marks were driving along Trow Road and selected this place for their upcoming attack as it was isolated. On October 3rd, Spader had told Gribble that he had a plan to break into a house and asked him to join. Gribble agreed to join, knowing that the plan involved killing anyone who may be in the house. The plan was set in motion, and on October 4th, just after midnight, the four boys would drive to the Cates residence, break in, and violently attack the sleeping mother and her child.
You stood in that doorway and you watched them both attack those people, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you once, just once, try and stop them?
No.
Did you try and help
No.
Kim or Jamie once?
No.
I want you to look at these jurors right now. Did you attack Kim or Jamie Cates in that bedroom?
No.
Did you lay a hand on them?
No.
Who did you see go in that bedroom with weapons and attack them?
Steve Spader and Chris Gribble?
But you did nothing to stop it.
No.
Did you think that those two people, that woman and that little girl, were alive or dead at that point on?
I thought they were dead.
Did you see Quinn Glover go in that bedroom?
Yes.
Did he say anything when he came in?
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you what he said, but was he upset about what had happened?
He seemed shocked.
Was anyone in the house that you and the other three broke into?
Yes, there were.
How many people?
2.
Male, female?
There was a woman and her child, a little girl.
Were those 2 people attacked?
Yes, they were.
Were you in the house when the woman and the young girl were attacked?
Yes, I was, sir.
Did you actually see the attacks when they initially occurred?
No,
Where were the victims when they were attacked inside their home?
they were in their bedroom.
Who did you see go into the bedroom before they were attacked?
Chris Gribble and Steven Spader.
Were Mr. Gribble and Mr. Spader armed when they went into that bedroom?
Yes, they were, sir.
What weapon did the defendant, Mr. Spader, have when he went into that bedroom?
A machete.
And when we're referring to Mr. Spader, do you see him here in the courtroom?
I do, sir.
Please point him out and identify an article of clothing that he's wearing.
To the right of the table, in the blue suit.
This man right here?
Yes, sir.
And the record reflect that the witnesses identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
And you saw this man go into that bedroom with what?
A machete, sir.
You also saw Mr. Gribble go into the bedroom?
I did, sir.
Was Mr. Gribble armed?
Yes, he was.
How was Mr. Gribble armed?
He had a knife, sir.
After you saw the defendant and Mr. Gribble go into that bedroom, did you hear any noises?
Yes, sir, I did.
What noises did you hear coming from that bedroom?
At first, a voice said, "Jamie, is that you?" Then a response of the a higher pitched voice said, "Yeah, Mom." After that, there were screams, cries for help.
What other noises did you hear, Mr. Glover?
I heard footfalls and thuds.
After you heard the screaming and the thudding, did you see the defendant come out of that bedroom?
I did, sir.
Did he still have the machete?
Yes, he did, sir.
Was anything different about the defendant's machete after he came out of that bedroom?
It was covered in blood and hair.
Did the defendant say anything to you after you saw him leave the bedroom, after you heard the screaming and the thumpings?
He did, sir.
What did he say?
He said that we made enough noise because 2 people are dead.
He said that 2 people were dead.
He did, sir.
And that's after he came out of the bedroom. Again, how was that machete?
It was covered in blood and hair.
The child would survive, but her mother would not. When satisfied and believing both victims were dead, the group stole jewelry from the house and would later pawn it for $130. Details of how the police connected Gribble and Spader to the attack are scarce, but it appears the two were bragging about the attack to a number of friends and acquaintances, even threatening some if they were to talk. One witness claims Spader would say that the rush of killing was such a high he may become addicted to it. As a result of this bragging, information would make it back to the police and they would quickly focus their attentions on the group. A day after the murder on the 5th of October, the group would be arrested. Initially, Gribble would say he was not connected to the attack.
You're saying that you don't have any information regarding the specifics about it, but it's obvious that someone is dead, and that a young girl is, according to the newspaper, in, what did they say, stable?
They said stable condition, but my dad being an EMT, that could mean anything from she's in a coma but she's not going to die, to she's up awake and perfectly happy-go-lucky. So for all I know, they got into a car accident and you're looking for the car. But assuming that somebody specifically tried to kill them, like, that rubs against my conscience personally. I'm one of those type of gentlemanly chivalry sort of guys that you don't even hit girls, let alone go out and treat them badly. And if the girl's in the hospital, obviously she probably got injured or something.
Well, Chris, it's funny you should mention that, because I want to let you know, she is going to survive, fortunately.
That's good.
Yeah, that is real good, because it's real good because she deserves to be alive, and so does
so does the lady, I'm sure.
But you know what else is good? It's good because she can ID the 2 people that
That'd be
were
good.
in the house.
That'd be awesome. I hope you guys can do that.
Yeah. But what do you think should happen to those 2 people?
I don't know. It would depend. You just said they were in the house.
Yeah.
So, and forgive me for extrapolating here, but I always try to analyze things.
That's okay.
So I'm assuming they were in the house when they were attacked.
Mm-hmm. What do you think they were doing in the house?
I have no clue.
Okay.
You're talking Saturday night, so they were probably watching TV or something, or maybe hanging out doing girl stuff.
No, I mean, what do you think the 2 people were doing in the house?
I don't know.
Okay.
Like, it's possible it was like a robbery gone wrong, I guess. But,
if you think let's say it was a robbery gone wrong, and Mom ends up dead, the little girl ends up seriously injured. The people involved in it,
they're pretty nasty people.
What do you think should happen to those people?
Well, they should probably get sent to jail for the rest of their lives, or prison. I honestly don't know what's the difference between jail and prison.
You don't think that should be a death penalty case?
I honestly don't know the politics on the death penalty in the area.
I'm not asking you, because what
I'm saying I don't know if we even have the death penalty in the area.
But what I'm asking, what can happen and what you'd like to see happen could be 2 different things.
Well,
I'm asking, what do you think would be fair to say that these 2 people walked in the house and killed Mom and injured the little girl? What do you think should happen? I mean, what's your opinion that should happen?
Assuming that they intentionally attacked them when they were robbing the house, also assuming they were robbing the house and didn't just go in there to kill them, I would say they should probably at least go to prison for the rest of their lives. If the jury decides it's a death penalty, I probably wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah,
because it really goes against me to harm a woman in general, but a little girl, and from what I understand, she's about 10 years old. Come on.
She's 11.
She's 11, okay. So that's like, how could you do that to someone that young?
Oh, I agree.
Like,
I talked to her, and you know, she doesn't understand either.
You know, and
what would you do if Steve put you in a position, a pretty hairy predicament? What would you do? Would you stop him, or would you follow him?
I would stop him.
And deal with the consequences later?
I would definitely stop him, because I don't put up with stuff from anyone to a certain degree. If he's going to smoke cigarettes and he's almost 18, I don't care.
We're not talking smoking cigarettes.
Well, yeah.
We're not talking drinking beer if you're underage.
No, I'm just using that.
I'm talking serious stuff.
Chris, you don't get it, do you? You're a very smart person. You're sitting here talking to us. I'm looking at you and listening to what's coming out of your mouth. You're a very smart and intelligent person. But I don't think you really get the big picture. You were here for a reason, okay? You were sitting there minimizing things, talking about smoking cigarettes. We're talking about a homicide here. There is a dead woman and there is a little girl that has been seriously injured, and you're talking about cigarettes. You want to know what the other guys are talking about? They're not talking about cigarettes. So you better start thinking really hard and pull your head out of your behind and start telling us what happened on Saturday night, because it's not looking very good for you. Right now, there is a train coming down the track, and you are on the track. Do you see where I'm going with that?
I didn't do
Your story doesn't fit. Your buddies are telling us something different. People are talking about something different than what you are telling us. This was Saturday night. This wasn't 3 months ago Saturday night. This was Saturday night. It is Monday right now. There should be no question in your mind what you did. You just told us you don't use drugs. You don't drink.
No.
You have no reason to have this memory loss.
I just don't put anything into long-term memory unless it's important.
Let's take a deep breath and think long and hard about what happened Saturday night. You guys are parked over there. Let's start from there. What happens?
We cruised off.
You cruised off. And that's the story you want to leave here with. And that's the story that you expect Jeff and I to believe. Guys who've been investigating homicides, who are 15, 16, 17 years in law enforcement. You've watched CSI. You know how that stuff works. You've watched the police shows, how we talk to different people. We talk to different suspects and we bring people in, and one person says something, a little something, another person says a little something, different people say different things, and we put our case together. You want to go down like that?
Well, I can't tell you anything but what I think I did.
What do you mean, what you think you did? Don't tell me what you think you did. Tell me what you did, okay? Be a man and tell me what you did.
During a 7-hour-long interview, Christopher Gribble would admit to the police what he had done and provide harrowing details on his involvement. Please be advised that from this point on, the details explained become incredibly graphic and disturbing.
This is a continuation of a interview that we ended maybe 45 minutes or so ago. It might have been a little bit longer. At your request, we had been speaking with it was Chris and I and Trooper Jeff Ardini from the Major Crime Unit at that time. And again, we were interviewing Chris, and at some point, Chris said that he didn't feel like talking anymore. Is it true that you've come to me and you've told me you'd like to talk again.
Yes, I would.
Okay. And knowing that, Chris, what I'd like to do is just advise you of your Miranda rights again. And again, just for the tape, you are interested in discussing the matter of this homicide again.
Yes, I am. For the main reason that it was a conspiracy.
Okay.
Saturday morning, when I was with Steve, I'd already planned on being with my girlfriend that evening at her brother's birthday party and so on. He told me that him and Billy had been cruising around and had found a house out in Mont Vernon that looked reasonable enough, that it was out in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we were thinking we were going to go in there. When it was just me and him together in the car.
You and him, meaning?
Me and Steve.
Okay.
In the car. He said, yeah, we're just going to go in there, grab some stuff. If anybody's there, we're going to kill them, have some fun. I agreed. We could do that. That sounded good. And he said that he would text me, but we could meet at Walmart at around midnight that night, and we'd go out and do it.
Okay.
Billy was in on it too. He was all for it. We all had pocket knives.
Mm-hmm.
I had found a machete that my father owned, and Steve had mentioned he liked machetes, so I brought it along.
Okay.
And there is a Boy Scout knife, a straight knife, about 4 or 5 inches long.
Okay.
Thin blade. I liked it. It had a very nice handle, and it had a leather case that could go on your belt.
Yep.
So I chose that. And we met up. Quinn was going to be in on it too.
Okay.
Autumn was going to be our cover story. He said we'd get there whenever we told him. He'd say we were there from that time on, so that we had an alibi. When we got out there, the house that he'd chosen was way too big. It was next door to the one where the homicide took place.
Okay.
It was very large. We were no way we were going to be able to do this.
Okay.
We chose the other house. Didn't look like anybody was really home.
Right.
We figured it would be easy.
Okay.
I dropped them off in front of the house, about maybe 200 feet up the road.
Mm-hmm.
They went into the woods. We went in. Steve had the machete the whole time. We liked it. Thought it was cool.
Yep.
And we went in and started looking around. I found the box with all the breakers in it by the front door and closed off all the breakers so there wouldn't be any power.
Okay.
We looked around. All we found, other than the master bedroom door being closed, was that there was an iPod in one of the girls' rooms, and so we grabbed that.
Yep.
We went towards the master bedroom using the iPod as a light. Steve had the machete. I had the Boy Scout knife out. Stephen was in the front. I was right behind him. Quinn and Billy were in the rear.
Okay, so all 4 of you were
All
together
4
in
of
the
us
hallway?
were together the entire time. When Stephen opened the master bedroom door quietly, he looked in, and he said that there are people, but we thought he said there's no people.
Mm-hmm.
So he started to get a little bit relaxed and started talking, started to quiet us down. Then he shined the light on the bed, and that's when they woke up.
Okay.
The mother said something like, "Jamie, is that you?" Stevie threw the light. He went around to one side of the bed where the girl apparently was sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
I started to circle around to the other side in case something happened. And Billy and Quinn stayed by the door.
Okay.
Quinn, I think, it was either Quinn or Billy, said later that they closed the door just in case.
Mm-hmm.
The mom sat up in the bed, started asking who was there, what was going on, tried to turn on the lamp and it didn't turn on.
Yep.
And when she did that, Steve started hacking at the bed with the machete.
Okay.
They started screaming because they heard something. Apparently he missed them mostly. But I heard him hit the mom. And so I dove in and stabbed her a few times in the chest. Probably 2 or 3.
Yep.
Pretty sure it was 3. She started gurgling. Steve was just hacking away. He totally lost it. I was controlled, but I didn't really feel much of anything.
Yeah, okay.
I thought I would, but I didn't.
What were Quinn and Billy doing?
They stayed by the door.
Okay.
They didn't do anything, all honesty. We did everything. The girl jumped up. I almost sensed her in the dark get up and jumped over her mother. As Steve was hacking away, and she jumped right into my arms. I stabbed her once towards the face.
Mm-hmm.
I hit bone. I felt the knife skip off and didn't go in. Then I went for the front. I stabbed her somewhere on the front right chest area. I tried to twist her around so I could get a better shot at her heart. It was automatic.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about it. I automatically did it.
Yeah.
I stabbed her a couple times in the back as I was swinging her around, and she got free of my hand and went flying into the glass door, knocked her head. Stopped crying completely.
Okay.
I figured she was probably toast.
Yeah.
The mom was still gurgling and kind of breathing deeply. Steve just went at her. I was actually kind of scared of him. He just kept hacking at the bed. Came over at our side and hacked at it some more.
Yeah.
And then went over and kicked the girl a couple times with his steel-toe boots, and then hit her in the head with the machete. At least that's so he said he didn't aim for the head.
Yeah.
I was backing off because I knew Steve was losing it. I could tell. Then he turned around. He looked like Jason from Halloween with the machete in his hand. And I told him, Steve, relax. It's just me. It's Chris. He was breathing hard and relaxed. And Quinn had the good sense to go turn the breakers back on and the lights went on.
Yeah.
The mom was obviously not going to make it. The girl I was pretty sure wasn't going to. She was completely out. There was blood all over the place. There's at least one slash across the mom's face, down from the top left to the bottom right, where I could see where he dented her skull with the machete, and her eye was like, hanging out almost. Steve hacked her a couple more times after that and threw the blanket over, but she was still breathing.
Yeah.
So I went over and stabbed her in the side of the neck, make sure her artery bled out.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot came out, so I figured she was probably gone. I figured 3 stab wounds to the girl would probably have her gone anyway, so we didn't bother checking her.
Mm-hmm.
We grabbed just what jewelry we could find, and ran for it, pretty much.
11-year-old Jamie lay on the floor and pretended to be dead to avoid more punishment. As the lights came on, she would watch Gribble stab her mother in the neck, which would result in her mother's death. Stephen Spader believed that Jamie was dead on the floor, so he walked over to her and struck her on the head with the machete, stating, "I'm bored." During the attack, Gribble would mention that the room reminded him of a crime scene on a TV show. Whilst Spader was attacking Kimberly, parts of her bone became exposed, which Gribble noticed and would say out loud, "Oh, so I guess that's what bones look like." This is an excerpt from the court notes in the Spader trial regarding both Kimberly and Jamie's injuries. I do apologize in advance for reading such graphic detail, but it is necessary to gain a full understanding of just how vicious this attack was, and just how callous these monsters are. In all, Kimberly suffered 32 injuries on multiple areas of her body. The injuries were caused by at least 2 weapons. Some were clearly caused by a very long, very sharp, and very instrument-like machete, and some wounds could only have been caused by a more typical knife. 2 wounds actually opened the skull and extended into the brain and were consistent with the machete. The interior brain would have been visible. There were wounds to her face, through her jaw on the left side. 1 blow caused a little bit of a protrusion of the eyeball itself. There were wounds to her head and neck area, her torso, her left arm and left leg.
And she died as a result of all of these wounds, causing bleeding and essentially exsanguination, which means loss of blood. So she died as a result of these multiple sharp injuries that affected her head, her neck, her torso, her left arm, and her left leg.
So to be clear, it wasn't just one wound that killed Kim Cates, it was a combination of many wounds.
Many wounds. I mean, obviously some are very superficial, and if she had only sustained those, then she would have survived. But there are several that are perforating vital organs, transecting and severing major vessels that would have contributed to this loss of blood and loss of organ function.
Again, for the record, how many wounds did Chris Cates have on her body?
32 in all.
Was she alive for every single one of those wounds?
Yes.
Every single one she was alive for?
They are all causing what's called a vital reaction. So bleeding in the tissues surrounding the wound, internal bleeding. They look very different from the wounds I make. When I do a postmortem examination, I use a scalpel. I don't see the same tissue reaction when I make my incisions.
She was alive the whole time?
Yes.
Those are all the questions I have, Your Honor.
This is in regards to Jamie's injuries now. A portion of her foot, including her large toe, had been amputated, requiring skin grafting, and there was a fairly large laceration at the cheek extending down to the lower neck. There were lacerations in her thighs, laterally, immediately. There was also a fairly large laceration of the left flank, as well as a small laceration just below the nipple areola complex, on the left breast. Further, there was a scalp laceration, where some of the scalp came off as a flap, sort of opened like a book. There was a wound that penetrated and fractured Jamie's skull. That wound could have been inflicted by the machete. Jamie also suffered a deep facial wound in which the nerve had been severed. She had an open elbow fracture. Her lung was punctured and a chest tube was placed. In addition, she was placed on a ventilator in the intensive care unit. Her treating physicians at Children's Hospital in Boston testified they had never treated any patient, adult or child, with that many stab hack wounds. Christopher Gribble's defense tried to claim not guilty due to insanity, and he would do his best to play into this role. Legal analysts said that it was obvious Gribble is a sane person pretending to be insane, and that trying to lean into this image greatly hurt him overall.
He opened the door a little bit and shined it in and looked in, and he said something which, to us, I mean, Quinn and Billy seemed to agree with me, that it sounded like he said, "No one's here." And so we were like, oh, okay. And so we started talking a little bit louder, like, oh, well, this is, all this worry for nothing. And then he turned around and was like, shh, shh, there's somebody there. And he opened the door a little bit wider. I think it was at that point that Mrs. Cates woke up. I couldn't see too well into the room. I generally have reasonable night vision, but I mean, the iPod was right there ruining my vision. I remember seeing like some form sit up on what was to me the left side of the bed.
As you were facing it from the foot?
Yes, as you're facing it from the hallway, it was the left. And a female voice said something like, "Jamie, is that you?" At that point, I don't remember thinking anything for a little while. It got really weird. And I'm going to have a little trouble describing it because I've never felt that way before. But Steve immediately tossed the iPod and went down on the floor and headed for the right-hand side of the bed. The next thing I knew, I was walking towards the other side of the bed. I don't remember thinking I should go over to the other side. It was just like I knew without having to consider what I should do. I don't remember when I pulled the knife out from the sheath. At some point it was in my hand. I don't remember when I pulled it out. I remember realizing that it was in my hand, but I don't remember pulling it out. And I went to the other side, and by the time I got to that side of the bed, I remember the girl woke up on the right-hand side of the bed. I don't remember exactly what she said. I remember the feeling that she was groggy, but that's all I really remember about it. She might have said something like mommy or something like that. And then Steve just started hacking at the bed. I don't know that he could see what he was doing, but I could tell he was
whacking at the bed because I could hear it thumping against the blankets and everything. I remember someone started screaming, and at one point I heard like a and then some of the screaming stopped, and not long after that I kind of reached in and stabbed at the form in front of me. I knew what I was stabbing at, but I can't tell you how, because I couldn't really see well. But I knew where it was. I can't explain how I even actually hit what I was stabbing at.
Were you stabbing the person at the same time that Steve was hacking?
Oh, he never stopped. He just kept going and going and going. It's not like he stopped in between. I just reached in.
So you were doing it at the same time that he was hacking with the
Yes.
machete? But you were managing not to get hit with a machete as he was doing that?
Yeah, looking back on that, I don't know how I pulled that off. Because obviously he was reaching far enough across the bed to hit her. I'm guessing that's the sound that I heard. I know that it is a possibility that legally it is possible, if I were sent to the secure psychiatric unit, that I could get out again. I don't think it's probable at all. I think the possibility is one of those sort of 1,000,000 to 1 sort of things. But I know it's possible. And if I did get out, I think it is possible that I could kill again.
Although Billy Marks and Quinn Glover did not strike anyone during this attack, and have both expressed deep remorse for their actions, the judge would not let them off the hook. She would pass down sentences of 30 to 60 years and 20 to 40 years for the roles that they played. Spader was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Kimberly Cates and 76 additional years for attempted murder of her daughter. As Spader was a minor at the time of his trial, he was granted a sentence rehearing, which he declined taking, stating that he deserved everything that is coming to him, and that he should never be released from prison, as he is the most sick and twisted person you will ever meet. Christopher Gribble was found sane in his trial, therefore facing the full brunt of the law. He was sentenced to life in prison as well, and 75 additional years for other charges.
I consider a number of factors. I consider the nature and the circumstances of your crimes. I consider the statement made here today by Mr. Cates. I consider the statements made and the evidence presented in this courtroom. And I also consider whether there are any aggravating or mitigating factors. There are no mitigating factors in this case. The aggravating factors, out of respect for David and Jamie Cates, who are present in this courtroom, I am not going to go into the bottomless aggravating factors that exist in this case, but I believe the record will thoroughly support my belief that infinity is not enough jail time for you. Accordingly, you are sentenced on the remaining convictions to the maximum penalty allowed by law to be served consecutively.
For the life of me, I do not know how David Cates sat through these trials, and it is heartwarming to see the judge acknowledge this.
Mr. Cates, in closing, I would just like to thank you for the dignified and the graceful tone you set here in this courtroom throughout these proceedings. I don't know how you did it, day after day, week after week, coming in here and bearing witness to your family's suffering. But I thank you for the way that you did it, and I can assure you that your presence here in this courtroom will resonate for a very long time to come. And I want to thank Jamie for coming here today. It is nice to be able to finally meet you. I think it helps everybody here in this courtroom, Jamie, to finally get to meet you and to see you. You are a lovely little girl. And I hope you know that this man and the other men that were involved in this terrible crime can never hurt you again. I hope you understand that. And I wish you better days. Thank you.
Jamie Cates, the 11-year-old girl in this incident, would not only go on to survive, but now leads what appears to be a very happy and healthy life.